George Mitchell Comprehensive in Leyton, East London. A traditional building, but with a very 21st century approach to teaching and learning.
This whole Victorian idea of children being seen and not heard seems to have lasted a lot longer than just the Victorian era. Children are always going to be heard. They're always going to want to be heard. And if we don't allow them to be heard saying something useful, then they're going to be heard saying something not useful.
Here at George Mitchell, the pupils are allowed to have their say on how the school is run. They take part in staff interviews.
Magic, how are we all doing? How are we all doing?
You're not exactly what we're looking for.
You're not telling me that what you say counts here.
You didn't really pay attention to the students who needed help.
They conduct lesson observations.
What we're going to be doing today is, this is the title, okay, Letter to My Father.
You started the lesson very good, the key objectives, the learning objectives very good.
And this all happens because of a new initiative called Making Learning Better, part of the school's student voice scheme.
It is quite a scary place to be as a teacher, to have students commenting on your performance in the classroom.
Yes, I did realise the lesson had a lot of reading, and then after doing it I realised that it went on for a bit. Maybe I should have read half of it.
I think the knee-jerk reaction maybe from some, quite understandably, was, hang on a minute, this is our classroom. We're doing our job well. We don't really want a student sitting at the back and telling us how we could be doing it better. We're trained. We're fully experienced. These are children. We and they need to remember that they are children.
Helen Jeffrey has been head of George Mitchell for 2 years.
I wasn't really quite sure what to expect when I came. I'd seen lots of reports about the school and it had its challenges. And as you come down the road, as you come down Farmer Road, it looks a little bit formidable, more like a house of correction, I heard somebody once say.
Ian, are you there? Over.
This is her first headship, having been appointed from the DFES trainee scheme.
I obviously think that I'm a good teacher and with a lot of knowledge about the curriculum, and my real interest is in developing different teaching styles to match different learning style preferences. And the very best people to tell us about how learning best occurs, I think, are the children.
And to ensure that the pupils really do make learning better, they're trained to conduct lesson observations.
We've been doing our lesson observations for about 4 or 5 months now.
Yeah, just to check up on how subjects are doing and teachers. They're still how they were when we interviewed them.
Right, are we all settled down now?
Today, Monica Hack, a trainee English teacher, is being observed by 2 Year 9 students, Mariam and Asim.
And look very carefully because we're going to do a lot of activities and you need to concentrate and understand what we're going to do today. First of all, we're going to read a non-fiction text. We're going to talk about...
She started the lesson very good, the key objectives, the learning objectives very good. So, however, the keywords weren't really presented.
There was no keywords, yeah.
There were no keywords at all.
Okay, you're going to have 3 minutes to write down what you think might be in that letter. Okay?
There weren't really many multiple intelligences, were there? There was only like one type of...
Yeah, she gave everyone the same, that type of work.
Good. Now, can you all stop writing, please? Okay? Now, I'm going to quickly ask just a couple of you.
One of the benefits to date of students going into lessons, for example, and observing stuff, is that they've developed the language of learning. And so we hear students talking about needing lesson objectives on the board, and students know what a plenary is, for example. And so we've given them that language.
She should have walked around the classroom most of the time because she was only standing at the front of the classroom.
They weren't concentrating. We were scared of having so much power because usually the teachers tell us what to do, and
we are the ones who have the power. They're the person who's meant to be nervous, and why are we nervous when they are meant to be nervous? So we were quite nervous at
the first time.
However, now we've gotten used to it now.
Yeah.
We've also given them confidence. I think that's been one of the main outcomes, really, of the whole of Student Voice, and MLB is part of that. And students have the confidence to and can articulate what they want, what makes them do better. They know for themselves how they're going to succeed better.
We liked how when you read something, you asked them a question just to see if everyone was paying attention.
And there should have been a lot of group work.
Okay.
That should have been slightly improved as well.
You explained everything really well, and when people asked you spellings and stuff, you put them on the board.
See, if the spellings are up, at least they feel more confident about writing the sentences down. I thought it was very useful being observed by the kids. I found that feedback very constructive. I was very surprised because they were very professional as well, and they did put across a lot of valid points and for me to consider and to incorporate into my future lessons.
I think everyone learned something though today.
Yeah, the students were very quiet. That was a very good point in class.
Okay. And we liked how you made the sitting plan before you came in, so the kids knew where to sit.
Very polite.
You're very polite.
I think their views are taken into account, but I don't think it necessarily means that they are getting too much power. It just means it's a way for them to express themselves and put their ideas across, where we adults actually find the time to listen to them.
Everywhere around him there should be these trees filled with owls, and when he looked out of his window you should see the ponds with the stickerlets. But what does he
Making Learning Better was the brainchild of Matthew Savage, who first introduced it into the English department.
On the other hand,
2 or 3 months later he went and told Miss Jeffrey, and she said, yeah, it's a brilliant idea, and it was introduced throughout the school.
Okay, got everyone's attention. Within English, when I came here, I wanted to transform the way in which English was taught. I wanted to kind of raise the stakes a bit. Yeah, haunted. They don't just swim in the pond, they haunt the local pond. Yeah, and the dragonflies, they don't just fly around, they flit. So MLB started as MEB, Making English Better. I figured that the best way to find out how learning and teaching could be improved would be to ask the kids. You know, okay, your lessons aren't as fun as they should be. How can we make them more fun? You're not learning as much as you should. How could you learn more? Basically throwing it open to the kids, because my experience in previous schools is that we underestimate and ignore the views of students, of the student community, at our peril. I wanted students to start to provide some input into how we could raise the stakes. I wanted students to help us to make teaching better, to make learning better, to make the whole learning experience a far more quality experience. I wanted them to feel proud, not only of being at George Mitchell, but proud of being in the lessons that George Mitchell delivers.
Who'd like to work with Yasmin and...
Matthew Savage was encouraged to implement his idea by the success of another initiative, Fighting Against Bullying, or FAB, a peer mentoring scheme.
FAB meant that the students were used to having their voice heard, and they're not always the most articulate. Their use of standard English might leave something to be desired, but they were used to being listened to and their opinions being valued. So that, in a sense, set up an environment where MLB could take off.
Okay, well, FAB stands for Fighting Against Bullying, and it's a programme run by the students to try to understand bullying and try to counteract it. It's partly a peer counselling scheme, which several schools have, but it's not only peer counselling, it's also getting involved in issues of bullying, trying to negotiate and trying to deal with them.
FAB is about the whole school community, where the pupils themselves deal with the bullies and the bullied. Samira became a FAB member after she was bullied.
I became interested in FAB by what happened to me last year. I got bullied by some group of people mixed in my class, and then I went to see Mrs. Spafford and I told them what was going on, and we talked about how we deal with it. In one lesson they were going to take me out and talk to me with the people. I told them how they were bullying me, because I didn't think really they understood how they were bullying me. They didn't understand what bullying was.
In FAB, the sort of influence they can have is they can be instrumental in children who have been unhappy becoming happy and feeling befriended and feeling strong in dealing with their own difficulties.
When I first joined George Mitchell, the FAB initiative was well established and had been up and running for a long time under Martin Spafford's guidance, but with tremendous leadership from the students themselves.
We've got an idea, just say like my netball one, yeah?
MLB does, as I think that takes the principle that if you hand over real power of decision making to children and young people, as long as you give them structured support so that they're not left on their own. There's so much commitment to trying to make the community of a school happier and more successful and a better learning environment that kids will have.
The Making Learning Better initiative now extends across the school, and one of the areas of success is girls' PE.
The list of students.
The girls have set up their own sports council. They're now working on the challenge of getting more girls involved in sport.
That's the girls.
That's just like us then, isn't it?
16, it's gone up.
Oh, how much was
so we've done.
We need to get more girls to do more sports and be interested in sports. So that's why we have the Girls Sports Council for that.
So we've gone up in total. And in terms of girls, it's gone up. Now, it's a slow process. We can't expect too much, but at least we've gone up. So well done, ladies. I think it has had an effect, actually. And some of the girls that are in there...
The parents won't allow the students to stay to do after-school clubs, because probably they have that. It's to do with their religion.
The lack of interest has not just been about lack of choice. Many of the girls are obliged to attend mosque from 4:30. Joe Tiddy, head of PE, has been working with the girls to get around this problem.
We've done a few things, and it's targeting all girls really, but Muslim girls as well. One of the things we're looking at doing is we've done some taster sessions to improve the range of activities we do, and hopefully set up and offer some activities that certain target groups would enjoy and therefore come to. But aside from that, we want to start our clubs earlier, as soon as the bell goes at 3:15, and then move them on till 4 o'clock, finish at 4 so they've got time to go home and relax before their evening commitments begin.
But Joe wasn't always convinced that making learning better would work in PE.
There's some of the things that were suggested at MLB that I think students can do and students should be doing. For instance, in PE, students should be coaching other students within the school in younger years. Students should be attending clubs and supporting each other in those clubs, being captains, taking on a sort of a leadership role. And there's other things that I think perhaps students aren't always best doing. For instance, it's really helpful to have students set up notice boards and so on, but at the same time, when you want an urgent notice to go out, you haven't got time to organise students, and therefore you need to be doing some things yourselves.
It's Sports Day, and the work of the Sports Council is starting to show results.
Nice to see, actually. They work really hard, and in fact they've got really behind each other and got really competitive, and where's their team player, and they're really looking out for each other and making sure they've got somebody in each event, which is really good to see.
Compared to last year, we got more girls doing stuff this year so in Sports Day, so that was really good, yeah.
I won my medal for tug of war. Our whole class, like 8 people from our class won the medals.
The relay, I came third in relay, and then the 200 metres I came second, so that was alright.
The pupils at George Mitchell are now having a real say in the running of their school, and the teachers have recognised the value of their insight and judgment.
the more students are given a say in matters that matter, the more they rise to the occasion, the more they say eloquent, shrewd, perceptive, insightful things that can help us to take things forward. And in a sense, I hope that MLB is starting to justify itself in that respect.
Any teacher coming for a job interview at George Mitchell can expect to face an unusual interview panel of pupils.
Really first-class geography teacher. This is the first interview you're doing, so Mr. Marshall's going to take the role of Teacher 1 here, okay? Teacher 1. So you need to remember his answers to these questions as the answers of Teacher 1. And you need to be making notes, all right?
This is one of many training sessions to help the pupils develop the interview skills they need.
Hello, welcome to George.
Teacher Ian Marshall has volunteered to act the role of 3 very different teachers.
Describe a good lesson that you have taught and also a less effective lesson. What did you learn from each one?
Okay, good lesson. Volcanoes. I was doing a lesson about volcanoes, and what I did, I built this great big papier-mâché volcano. You know what I mean by papier-mâché? Yeah, and it was great, and I had this little light in the middle, and it blew up a load of stuff. The kids loved it. You know, we spent about an hour blowing this volcano up, and it was going up to the sky. Less effective lesson. I suppose that would be where I just got them to do some reading, really. We just read about volcanoes and it didn't seem to work.
Describe an ideal environment, an ideal classroom environment.
An ideal classroom, I think again it's all about fun, but fun more than anything else really. As long as you seem to be enjoying what was going on and I was enjoying what we were teaching, I think that would be great, yeah?
Why do you choose geography as a subject to teach?
Geography? Well, it was something that I was very good at school, and I like watching programmes on television about geography.
Okay. Well, at this point, I mean, obviously you'd ask a lot more in your actual interview, but at the end of any interview you'd have a chance to ask them if they had any.
For real candidates, the judgment of the pupils has already determined whether they were successful in getting a job at the school.
The recent English interview, students retained control of that interview right through to the lunchtime stage. And in fact, one candidate was sent home because they weren't right for the school, purely on the basis of the students' opinions. I listened to their feedback. They'd observed the teacher, they'd given the teachers a tour of the school, they'd interviewed the teachers in a very rigorous interview, and this candidate wasn't for them. This candidate wasn't good enough for George Mitchell. And this demonstrated a number of things. It demonstrated the pride and the high expectations they had for the school. Not good enough for us is a really nice thing to hear them talk about. It also demonstrated the maturity and the sophistication that they had in interviewing and in making decisions about those interviews.
We interviewed an English teacher and she was so nervous she kind of fell down the stairs, but we thought she was better than the other one, the other candidate. But what happened was when we met them, they were both really good at the interview, and when we observed them, it went completely wrong, and we knew which one was better and which one wasn't.
So what do we think of this candidate?
Fun.
Who's going to be fun?
Too fun-loving.
Too fun-loving?
Yes.
Can you be too fun-loving as a teacher?
He's going to be a very active and fun teacher.
Isn't that good?
Yes.
But some people get tired of it. Say you've just had PE, then you come into a fun classroom.
Let's sum up this candidate on the basis of these responses.
Well, you will expect a lesson to have a lot of fun, however, you will also want to study in the lesson as well.
So it's that balance between
Yeah, balance it equally.
So you seem like a
For
nice guy.
practical and for fun reading.
Practical and fun. Okay, this is candidate 2 now, so you need to put aside the answers from candidate 1 and really focus on how this candidate is different. You're asking different questions, obviously.
After the enthusiasm of the first candidate, it is now time for Ian to play the role of a more thoughtful character.
You're looking for potential, all right? Not someone who's amazing now, but someone who we could make amazing and who could grow to be amazing in this school. Okay? Okay, go for it.
Why did you choose to teach in the first place?
Well, I'm very good at communicating. I can get my point across very well.
How would you design your teaching to engage or help boys in your classroom?
Boys, they are notoriously find it difficult to concentrate in lessons sometimes. So I would try and have a seating plan to ensure that all boys' needs were taken into consideration.
Seems very hard as well.
Very knowledgeable, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, sticks to the rules. It's like those teachers who dress in black and white.
Are you ready for candidate 3 then? This is the third and final candidate, okay? Often we'll have 3 or 4 candidates on a day, as you know. So try and keep those other 2 separate in your head.
Could I have your name, please?
Yeah, it's Andy Ritchie.
How would you design your teaching to engage and help the following, help a group of students that can't speak much English?
Just before we carry on, is this serious?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is serious?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's just I thought when I was asked to sit in front of a group of kids, it was just a bit of a, me talk to you, you talk to me, and have a bit of a joke. But it's serious, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, how do you implement multiple intelligences in your classroom?
You mean like good kids and not very good kids? Is that what you mean? And then your lower ability kids, the kids who can't quite make it. Well,
There's an honest adult dialogue now, so we can explain to students, and we've taken away that mystique and that kind of barrier that used to exist between students and staff in a school.
He mainly cares about the intelligent ones rather than the non-clever ones.
And he thinks you should leave the non-clever ones behind.
If we can talk about which of those candidates we might take forward. Were any of you involved in the recent English interview?
Yes.
Mary, where we didn't actually take one of the candidates forward? So you, without us involved, wasn't it? You students decided that you didn't like one of the candidates.
Like, we liked her, but when we observed her lesson, we realised she wasn't what we thought.
So you cut it down to one candidate, didn't you?
Yeah.
Only one went through to the afternoon.
Mhm.
Well, let's look at these 3 then. Imagine this is a morning interview. None of the teachers have seen, none of the staff have seen these candidates, so it's only up to you. This will happen a lot now, okay? The students having complete say about who goes through to the afternoon or not.
But what about those not involved in the Student Voice initiative? Does it really benefit all the pupils in the school?
About a quarter of our students are actively involved in Student Voice, about 150. And lots of those students were already quite confident, and perhaps that's how they found themselves involved in the different strands from the beginning. But we've been very careful to encourage students of all ages, and students of all abilities as well, it's important to say that, and students who perhaps typically have been rather quiet and withdrawn in school life. And it's been absolutely amazing to see how many of those have become more confident. I can think of a number of students who in just 2 years really are very, very different people.
The kind of student I was before Miss Jeffrey came was a student who kept himself to himself. Since Miss Jeffrey's come and she's introduced the student voice, now students find it very difficult to shut me up.
Although a big hit with lots of the students, it hasn't met with universal approval from all the staff.
My initial feelings about it was being rather scared, actually. Thinking that it could be an opportunity for some children to, if you like, get their own back, so to speak. And also that we would have to be very careful how we treated some of the requests or some of the ideas, which perhaps a little bit too extreme, but without putting off the children.
I thought in the beginning it was a good idea. I still think it's a good idea. I just sometimes have my reservations for, as in our department in science, our initiative is to have the kids during our meetings. And you can't have them before all the meetings because some things are said that the kids can't hear. So there's a few things that sometimes is difficult because you can't allow the kids to hear everything.
Well, I think it's the nature of any consultation exercise that it's obviously up to the adults to make decisions at the end of the day. It's to do with taking on board different people's views. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to kowtow to the students' opinions. And I think they're just one of a group of stakeholders that we need to take into account.
I would have to be honest and say that I think a number of staff were a little bit cynical about MLB at the very beginning. I know somebody came to me and said, "Oh, it's a bit American, it's a bit wacky," and it's not going to last. It's not here to stay. Well, I think we've shown it is here to stay.
Whilst there may have been doubts about the scheme, the teachers are now determined that the students have a real say in what happens in their classroom.
For me, the most exciting thing, and the thing with the most potential, is this idea of students regularly observing lessons. As a teacher, I've always been happy for anyone to come into my lesson, whether it's parents, staff, other students, visitors. What we're trying to implement with MLB is for every classroom to be very much an open-door classroom, and for students to be a regular feature at the back of lessons, observing, feeding back afterwards, and helping to make learning better.
Could be that. But even
as long as it's delivered in the right way and the kids have got the right training, which they are getting at the moment, you know, that they know that they can't just go up to a teacher. It's not about like victimising teachers and saying, I don't like this teacher, it's boring. You know, they're learning to actually be able to have a critical eye.
Well, so far I think it's going okay, but I think the group work could be made better because there hasn't been any group work so far.
On a personal level, the idea of having the students come in to watch our lessons, I was very much for it, just from the off, because I'm coming from a marketing background. Previously I've worked in marketing, and the whole idea of marketing is that you try and find out what your customers want.
Parents have had a voice for a long time. Teachers have had a voice. It's been their voice which has dominated. It doesn't seem to me that radical for students to have a say as well. They are one of the major stakeholders after all.
What Making Learning Better and the student voice has done for me is given me the chance, not just me actually, just giving these pupils at George Mitchell School, you know, the chance to get the best that they can out of the teachers.
I think it's a good scheme because when you're with adults, it makes you feel really trusted and mature.
If you hear that someone's a child, you might not listen to their thoughts as much as you would listen to an adult. But it's nice to know that you're respected and that you have a say in how the school's run.